Welcome to the Trip Tales podcast with me, Kelsey Graves. Let's jump into a new episode exploring a vacation destination that you'll want all the details about. Okay, I have to tell you guys about this magical natural spring in Slovenia. Stick with me for a sec. This spring is famous for having the highest natural magnesium concentration in the world because the water flows through ancient layers of stone, naturally enriching it with magnesium. It's so cool. Now, if you're like me and currently magnesium obsessed, this is for you. Most of us are low on magnesium because our American soil is depleted and our diets aren't cutting it, and we notice it in our energy levels. Enter Vital Spring. These are travel-friendly individual packets of premium magnesium and electrolytes sourced from Europe and inspired by that very spring in Europe. And many of you travel lovers know that we feel way better when we're eating and getting our nutrients in Europe. What makes Vital Spring different is how clean and effective it is. No added sugar, no weird ingredients, just exactly what your body needs in the most bioavailable form, meaning your body knows exactly what to do with it. And the flavor is super mild, just a hint of lemon rind sourced from Italy. As someone who drinks black coffee and dry white wine, I love that it's not overly sweet or fruity. I mix mine with sparkling lemon water, and I swear I can taste the minerals absorbing into my body. Even my husband's on board now. We both notice a difference about halfway through drinking it and feel amazing when we're finished. After workouts, walks in my weighted vest, or especially when traveling, this is my new must-have. I'm definitely packing it for our Grand Canyon hike this summer. Vital Spring was so kind to offer Trip Tales listeners the biggest discount they've ever given. 20% off your order with code Kelsey20. So go to vital-spring.com. That's vital-spring. Use code Kelsey20 at checkout and get your magnesium and electrolytes in check. Again, that's vital-spring.com and use code Kelsey20. You're gonna feel amazing. Hey everyone, welcome back to Trip Tales, the podcast where real people share their real trip stories to give you destination inspiration and practical planning tips. Today we are going to be talking about a family's trip across Italy and Switzerland, and I know I'm going to be taking notes on every single detail today. But first, I have to thank my most recent buymeacoffee.com supporter, Brittany. Brittany bought me 3 coffees and wrote, "Thanks so much for creating this podcast. It's so fun to experience new travel spots, all while tackling the dishes and laundry. Thanks so much for having me on to talk Disneyland Paris. It was so much fun, and I love that I can relive our trip in such a cool way. Keep the amazing destinations coming." Thank you so much, Brittany. I'm doing my happy dance right now, and it's interesting. A handful of past guests have mentioned that having their Trip Tales episode is like a mini memory and a keepsake to relive their trip, which is pretty cool. If you haven't listened to Brittany's episode, she shares all about visiting Disneyland Paris with her family of 5, and it pretty much had me packing my bags for France. Buymeacoffee.com is a super simple way to show your support for the show, write me a little note, and help me buy my groceries and keep podcasting away. The link is always in the show notes, or if you have a good memory, it's just buymeacoffee.com/Kelsey Graves. Okay, let's go to Europe with today's guest, Nikki. Welcome, Nikki. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I start every episode with a rapid fire get to know you. So tell everyone where you live, what you do, and about your family.
I live in Utah. I'm a mom of 4 kids. I live with my husband. He's a video producer, although when we take our trips, for some reason, I'm still always behind the camera.
You're like, I need some content creation here.
I guess he thinks he's on vacation.
Yeah.
And then I have 3 jobs. My favorite job is being a mom to these 4 kids. I also run a piano studio out of my house. So I've got lots of kiddos coming and going. And then I have recently started helping people plan trips on points and miles, whether they have those points already or they want to open some credit cards. I hold people's hand and walk them through the process.
Yes, I always say that people know this isn't a Points and Miles podcast because there's so many great ones out there that I listen to and have helped me get free travel recently, but I feel like most of the listeners are interested in dipping their toe in points and miles, or maybe some of them have already dipped their toe in, and it's fun to figure out how to use those points that you're accruing. So, why don't you give a brief history of your points and miles journey and kind of what brought you into it and where you are now?
Yes. So actually, this trip was the impetus for getting into points and miles. I thought I want to take my kids to Europe and I want all six of us to go, but I knew I couldn't afford it. And I actually paid to take a class, an online class. I learned all about it. And oh, this hobby was made for me. I've always been interested in travel. I love it so much. And I've wanted to make it affordable for my family of six. So we've done things like home exchange. I'll always be looking for a good deal and tips to make it more affordable. Well, this just blew all my other tips out of the water. Learning how to travel on points and miles has truly been life-changing for us. So we were able to take our family to Europe where we wouldn't have been able to before. And we've done so many trips. We travel at least every 2 months and I document it on Instagram and I'm just learning more every day.
Yeah, it's such a journey and it is fun to get started in it, especially that first trip that you book with points and miles. It's such a high. What course did you take?
It was called Travel Rewards University. It was a great course. There are lots of other courses out there too that you can take. And yes, you pay for the course, but truly it has saved me over $50,000 in travel.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm so excited to talk about your adventures traveling Italy and Switzerland. Had your family traveled out of the country before this trip?
Yes, but just to Mexico and Canada.
Yeah.
That's where we had been before.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're started. We went on a cruise and now I'm looking at Mexico. I mean, I've been out of the country a handful of times, but I'm starting to get my kids into trying to get out of the country. But Mexico and Canada and the Caribbean are like easy first steps.
Yes, we recently just returned from Costa Rica too, which was such a family-friendly place.
Yes, that is on our list. For this trip, why did you choose Italy and Switzerland, or how did you narrow in on those two countries?
My husband has always wanted to go to Italy. When we were dating, he was learning Italian, and this is before Duolingo. So
Yeah.
it's
He had to
significant.
have like a book on tape or book on CD or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
right. So he's just always wanted to go. We both speak Spanish, and so learning Italian is kind of the next step, it feels like. Italy just seemed like it hit all of the points, especially for kids. Super family friendly. The food is familiar and delicious. Also very diverse, right? You have anything from, you have beaches, you have mountain areas. So it just felt like we could see a lot of diversity. And then Switzerland, a little bit, felt like a more beautiful home. We're 40 minutes from Park City, and Switzerland seemed really familiar. I thought that my kids would feel at home there, but also a different enough experience to give us some culture as well.
Yes, I love all those reasons. I was watching your Instagram highlight bubbles last night and for the same reasons, like my kids, who doesn't love Italian food, honestly, but my kids love Italian food. And then the beauty of the mountains in Switzerland and those Swiss towns. I've been in college and it was just reminding me how insanely beautiful it is. Park City and the mountains in the US are beautiful too. But like you said, it's like a different type of beauty. We'll talk about the one place you went to. I think that it was like the land of 72 waterfalls or something, but it's just like almost breathtaking. And I know your husband's a videographer, but you're not a professional videographer. And just your videos alone, I mean, it blew me away. So I'm excited to start talking about that. I'm obsessed with planning trips. I love it. I actually have started to plan trips that we don't even go on, I'm realizing, because I'll get an idea and I go down a path and then I'll find a document later and go, oh, that was funny. I spent like a few hours on that and I don't think we're going to go on that trip. But I'm always curious about other trip planners' processes. So you hit up a lot of cities. What was your process in figuring out what cities you wanted to hit up and the order you were going to do it? Kind of walk us through your typical trip planning process.
Yes, that's so funny that you say that you're planning trips that you don't go on because that is what I do. In fact, my friend is letting me plan her trip to France. She's taking this summer. And I say letting me, like she doesn't want to do it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll do it for you. So I used to put my kids to bed and then just plan pretend trips that I knew we could never afford. And now with points and miles, we can afford it. So my process, honestly, I do a lot of blogs. I read a lot of blogs. I'll just Google itinerary for and then put in the city. And then I'll just pick out things that feel like they would work for me and my family, things that we're interested in. I also follow people on Instagram and check out their highlight bubbles. Also, YouTube is a great place to look for itinerary as well. And something that I've recently done is actually leave it up to AI. I'll just put in Chat GPT, give me an itinerary for Florence, Italy, or something like that, and it'll spit out some really awesome things to do.
Yes, I don't know how we plan trips before AI. It's such a game changer. I love it.
Thank you.
So this was a summer trip for you guys. You went in June 2024 and your whole family of 6 went, which I have to say, you are my spirit animal because I think booking travel on points and miles is kind of hard for large families, a family of 5, a family of 6, but here you are doing it with a family of 6. So I'm here for all the tips. Tell us how you got there.
We flew KLM there and then Air France back. These are partners with Delta. So we check in at the Delta counter because Salt Lake City is a Delta hub. So if I were to book these flights through Delta, I use points to book them. If I would have booked these flights through Delta, they would have been 4 times the amount, these very same flights. But booking through international carriers is oftentimes so much cheaper. So I booked these flights through KLM and they were 15,000 points each way.
That's awesome.
Yes, I did use, so always with KLM and Air France, kids 11 and younger are 25% off, always, either points or cash. So that's a really great tip. And then also, I did book at the time when there was a transfer bonus. So I transferred American Express points to KLM and there was a 25% bonus. So that means when I transferred, I got 25% more points. So yeah, it was 30,000 miles round trip. Plus I had to pay taxes and fees. I would say it was about $200 a person in taxes and fees.
Amazing. And I know this is all in the course you took, and we all can do our own learning. But just real quick, is there a website you love for figuring out like a low point flight? Because I know there's a bunch of websites, and I don't even do this yet. I think I'm going to start because I have over 100,000 Amex points now because I just got a bonus or the introductory offer, and I'm trying to figure out how to use them. And I'm like, I need to figure out where I can fly to from Nashville and what international carrier would make sense or have a good deal.
Yes, such a good question. And Kelsey, I will help you if you
Okay.
want.
Thank you.
It's so fun. I would love to help. So, yes, some of my favorite websites, there's a bunch of them out there. I actually usually check a few because sadly, they're not all 100% accurate.
Okay.
I would say about 80% accurate. So I go to either point.me, point.me, and that's a good website. I also go to points, yeah, YEAH.com, pointsyeah.com. And I'll usually check both of those and I'll just put in Salt Lake City to wherever I want to go. Sometimes, like for example, on this trip, I couldn't find any flights home that were a good point price. And we were pretty strict on the day we needed to come home. And so oftentimes if you're flexible, you can find better point values. But I had us fly from Zurich to Boston and we spent a night in Boston. And then we flew Southwest because I had a bunch of Southwest points. We flew Southwest home. But I wasn't sad about it because I love Boston. We did the
Yeah.
Freedom Trail with my kids. It was really great. It was a great way to come home and finish up the trip. So those two websites are great. They'll give you ideas of where you can get good value on your points. And you can filter by all kinds of things. I only want to do one stop, or I want a non-stop flight. You can filter by the kind of point currency you have, if you have Amex points or Chase points. And then you need to go to that website. So if it says your best point value is to fly Emirates or to fly Delta, then you need to go to Emirates, create a loyalty account. It takes 2 seconds. And then make sure that that flight is actually there before you transfer your points.
Yes. Do you have to pay for those websites?
No, well, point.me does have it is subscription based. I go in through the Built, B-I-L-T, through the Built website. You can just use point.me for free if you have a Built loyalty. So I just created a Built account. It's free. And then that's how I use point.me. Otherwise, you can pay for it. It has a yearly, monthly, it even has a subscription you can use for 2 weeks. It's like $5 if you just want to look for 2 weeks.
I'm sure the subscriptions are so that you can set up alerts and some more high level stuff, which would be nice if we're in a position where we could just pick up and leave and go somewhere if an alert popped. But for people like you and me, we're tied to certain, date ranges right now, school, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like I'm similar to you, where like if I'm going to travel, it's going to be generally in this range. And so I would probably be looking for specific dates, kind of like what you were talking about.
Yes. And then points, yeah, that's free.
Okay, awesome. And I have also heard Points and Miles people talking about positioning airports and positioning flights. So like, for instance, if I want to use these points to fly my husband and I somewhere cool, think about flying out of New York or Boston and looking at those and then using my Southwest points and my companion pass to get us from Nashville to New York. Cause that's just like easy peasy, fly at any time for $100 and then use the points in like a major hub.
Right. For example, right now, there are so many great flights from JFK to London Heathrow for 9,000 miles.
Oh my gosh.
It would absolutely be worth positioning to New York if you have, especially I have a Southwest Companion Pass.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to position to New York, and then I can fly for 9,000 miles nonstop to England.
Yeah. I feel like the hardest part in this whole thing is like, I would go tomorrow. Like, I'd be like, let's go. My husband has like a real job. He like runs and operates and owns dog daycares, which is like a real on the ground business. And he's like, I can't just keep leaving. And I'm like, sure you can.
Exactly. It's every person's trouble who loves to plan travel. It's their player two, right? Or their partner.
Yes.
That has a real job. It's so frustrating. But I just tell my husband, sorry, figure it out. We're going.
I feel like I have to tiptoe and be like, are you in a good mood? Let's have a chat.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So the first place you flew was to Rome. Is that right?
Yes. We flew Salt Lake City. We had a layover in Amsterdam and then on to Rome.
Okay. So you land in Rome and tell us about where you stayed in Rome.
Yes, we stayed at the Tribune. This is a Hyatt hotel. So I listened to your podcast on transferring Chase points to Hyatt. I'm just going to reiterate, that's a fantastic podcast. Anyone who just wants, if you want to learn one thing about points and miles, listen to that podcast and it will make a big difference in your travel. When you transfer your Chase points to Hyatt, in fact, all my Chase points go to Hyatt hotels because it's such a good value there. So we stayed at the Tribune. It was a lovely hotel. We needed 2 rooms because there's 6 of us. I booked each room for 18,000 points. The cash rate at the time that we were staying there, I think it was around $400. So 18,000 points per room is not bad.
No.
And then I emailed the hotel because each room only slept 2 people. So which is trouble. That is tricky to do with a big family in Europe. A lot of the times when we were there, we stayed in Airbnbs just because it makes it easier. And I'll talk about how I did that with points as well. I can talk about that later, but hotels are tricky. They just have small occupancy rates. or levels. So I emailed the hotel, asked if we could upgrade to a family suite, which sleeps 4 people. It was a large, lovely room. And they said that I could do that for $120 a night, which to me was a no-brainer because this room went for over $600 a night.
Yeah.
So worth it.
Super smart. So you booked on points, the 2 rooms, and then you upgraded one of them for $120 a night. And so now you had a room that slept 4 and a room that slept 2.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
And tell us about the hotel. What's it look like and where's it located?
The hotel, it was about maybe a 40-minute drive from the airport. We got a private transfer, really nice. Actually, we just found him at the airport. We were planning on just taking an Uber, but he approached us and it was great. He took us to the hotel, gave us a tour along the way, told us the history as we went. It was really great. The hotel itself was so lovely. It was in a great location right outside of the Borghese Gardens. So every night returning to our hotel, we would walk through the gardens where they have fountains, live music playing, people out with their families having picnics. We really loved the easy access to the gardens. The hotel itself, our family suite I think it had 2 bathrooms, if I remember correctly. It had a trundle bed and a twin bed, and then it had a king bed as well. Lots of space in the family suite. The other room that slept 2, it was really nice, high quality room, but it was small, like most European hotels.
Yeah, that's so awesome about that family suite, though, because it is hard to find space in Europe for a family. So, super good to know about that being at the Tribune, which you can book on points. Tell us about some of the stuff your family did in Rome.
So, the best advice I got for Rome was Google anything that looks interesting to you. And this was my favorite tip because everywhere you go is just full of history. So, we would come across, a monument. For example, there was an Egyptian obelisk. No plaque
An
saying
Egyptian what?
an obelisk,
What's
like
that?
the Washington Monument.
Okay. Like a monument that goes up and has a point?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
yes. So we're walking through this lovely square and we see this Egyptian obelisk. We're wondering, what is the history about this? So we Google it. There's no plaque or anything. Apparently, it was brought to Rome by Augustus Caesar, sailed down the Nile in pieces, reassembled in front of the Circus Maximus. There's no plaque or anything. We would never have known. And that's what I loved about Rome. Everywhere you go, there is amazing history.
Yeah, one thing you can do, I don't know if you guys were doing this exactly, but most people listening probably know this, but you can take a picture of something now, and in the Google app, you can upload the picture and it will tell you anything about it, kind of like you said, that monument. Or last night, my mom had taken a beautiful picture in the Cotswolds in England. And she was like, the Cotswolds is kind of a large area, but this particular spot was my absolute favorite. And her friend was going in a few weeks and she wanted to tell her friend exactly where this location was. But she's like, how do I tell her? And I was like, Google Images. So I just dropped the photo in the Google app, uploaded it. And I said, where is this exactly? And Google told me it's exactly in this part of the Cotswolds. And she was able to send her friend the exact location of her favorite spot. So yeah, when you're walking around Rome or anywhere, you can take a picture of something, upload it into Google Images, and it will tell you everything you want to know about it, which is so cool.
That is genius. That is such a good tip. So the night we arrived, we went to Trevi Fountain. I loved walking around Rome at night. There were less people, and Trevi Fountain at night was so magical. Just the way that they light up the fountain and there weren't nearly as many people. I wanted to keep my kids awake, right, to adjust to the time change. It was so lovely. We loved walking by the Colosseum at night. That was really great. It just felt, I mean, it was just a pinch me moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are we so lucky that we get to be here?
Points and miles, baby.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty awesome. The next morning, we had Colosseum tickets. I tell you that I want to help you book your trips. But you need to double check my days if I help you because I booked our Colosseum tour on the wrong day.
Oh
So
no.
anyway, so I showed up. The woman says, "Oh, these tickets were for yesterday."
Oh,
Sadly, and I worked so hard to get those Coliseum tickets. I actually wanted the underground tickets, where you get to go down on the floor and see the tunnels where they would keep the gladiators and the animals and things like that. I woke up 4 times during the night. I set an alarm on my phone for when they would be released. So they're released, I can't remember, a few months in advance of when you want to go, and you need to go on and book your tickets. But it was the middle of the night for me,
mm-hmm.
and they're released every 2 hours or something like that throughout the day. So I woke up 4 times in the night to try to get those underground tickets, and every time they sold out so fast. I just couldn't beat the bots. And what I read online is it's tricky to beat those bots. So if you want to do the underground tour, I recommend getting like a Viator tour or something like
Like a
that. I think,
guide.
yes. But we ended up just not doing the underground, and I was able to get Colosseum tickets for 22 euros. I just wasn't willing to pay. If you book through Viator, it's like $100. So I just booked their through it's the Italian government's website.
Okay.
So I booked through that. It was 22 euros. And we loved it so much. We used Rick Steves' audio guide
And is
to,
that just like, do you download an app
yeah,
and then you look up the destination you're at and he'll give you a guided tour?
yes, yep. He'll take you from place to place, tell you where to look. He'll say, now turn around and see the stairs on your left, like super guided
Oh,
instructions.
cool.
We did it in the Forum as well, the Roman Forum. So it's just a free audio guide.
And
And
each kid just uses their own phone or device that they have with them and puts in their AirPods or whatever headphones they have.
exactly, with my little kids, they didn't have phones. So I just shared an AirPod with them, and we just,
Smart.
but my older kids, yes, they just had their own phone, and we got to do our own audio tour. It worked out really
And do you
great.
have to pay for that app?
No, it's free.
Really? That's so cool. I bet I could have done that at the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, I don't know if Rick Steves does it. He's really big on Europe. So he
Okay.
has all throughout Europe, but I'm not sure if he has them in the United States, but it works really, really great in Europe. In fact, we would even put it on in Switzerland and just drive through the roads, and then we learn about the history of the town that we were in and things like that. So
Very cool.
I will say my favorite thing in the Forum, don't miss it. Again, if you don't have a tour guide, and if you're not listening to the audio tour, you wouldn't even know, but there's this big pile. People have put coins and flowers and things on this big pile. You kind of have to go behind this wall to see it. And it's where Julius Caesar was cremated. And there's no sign, you wouldn't know it at all. And I was like, here, right here. I can't believe we're standing in front of this. That was really great.
How
And
were the
then,
crowds? Last time I was in Rome, I just remember the Colosseum crowds being so overwhelmingly crazy. I'm curious in the summer in June how the crowds in Rome felt. I know you have the tip to walk around at night, which is a huge tip, but during the day and at the major spots, what were the crowds like?
yeah, good question. I am not a big city girl, actually. So I was actually not looking forward to Rome, having never traveled there before. I thought, well, we're in Italy. I need to see the sights. I didn't think the crowds were bad at all. In Florence, I thought they were much worse.
Okay, good to know.
Rome, we went the first week of June, and I really didn't think it was a lot better than what I anticipated. We went to the Vatican Museum and did the Sistine Chapel tour. Just a tip on the Vatican Museum, they ask that you cover your knees and shoulders to go to the Vatican. They also ask that for the Duomo in Florence. So just heads up on that. And it's hot. So
Yeah, so did you
maybe,
guys just wear like capri, like the girls, did they wear like capris or lightweight travel pants?
yeah, I live my life mostly in leggings, so that's what
Yeah,
I
leggings.
wear. And
Yeah.
then yes, yes, but or like a lightweight, maybe something linen or something like that would be great. There were also people who had just brought like a little scarf or shawl to cover their shoulders when they were inside. And not everyone actually was covered, but they do ask that. So I think just to be respectful, We also went to the Spanish Steps in Rome. We ate dinner at Pastificio, which I would highly recommend. It was delicious and under $10 a person. Really great pasta. You chose your pasta, you chose your sauces, you chose your vegetables. It was just kind of a bowl that you put together, and it was really great. We just took it and had a picnic over at our Borghese Gardens that was right by our hotel. Also, my kids loved eating at McDonald's in the different countries. Whenever we go to a different country, they like to eat to see how McDonald's is different. McDonald's in Italy, I thought was delicious. They have pears on their hamburgers and they have special sauces, and it's just really fun to experience that with kids.
How fun.
Oh, another place that we ate that was close to the hotel that we loved so much. It was called Allegrío. And there's also a gelato place right next door, which we got gelato maybe every couple of hours in Italy.
I love it. We
So
will
yeah,
put all of the restaurants in the show notes so that you guys can actually like see where they are. The pasta ficio where you made your own bowl and kind of had a picnic, was that something you were aware of when you planned the trip, or you kind of stumbled upon that and you were like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing."
so just stumbled upon it. We
Okay,
wanted
cool.
a grab and go kind of meal.
Okay, so you have your last sleep in Rome and then you wake up and you need to get a rental car, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so how did you go about booking a rental car in Europe?
I almost always, because I'm a points and miles girl, I almost always book through the Capital One travel portal. I have the Venture X card, and every year I get, well, I have it, and my husband also has one. And every year we get $300 credit to use in the travel portal. So I usually book my rental cars that way with that $300. And also, you get 10 times the points on rental cars when you book through the portal. It was a little tricky finding a car that would fit all of us because we have our luggage and we've got six of us in Europe. And so I was nervous about that, but it turned out really great. We had just it was what we would consider a small minivan, is what we ended up renting, but it was tight with our luggage for sure. We all did carry on, all six of us. So it was tight to fit six carry-ons in there, but we made it work, and bless my husband, he packed it up every day like a champ. We actually drove back to the airport because that's where I found the best rates. So my husband and I left the kids at the hotel. They had breakfast at the hotel. We took an Uber out to the airport, picked up our rental car there, and then we needed to drive back into Rome. People say it's crazy to drive in Rome. That is true. It's kind of crazy to drive in Rome, but we drive everywhere. When I say we, my husband drives everywhere. He's not a nervous driver. So there was a lot of traffic, but it was fine. It was totally doable. You don't need a rental car in Rome, so I would not recommend it. But we were so glad that we had a rental car for most of the trip. First of all, traveling with six people, train tickets can add up. We did take a train from Milan to Lucerne, Switzerland, because it was very expensive. There were additional fees to take the rental car across country lines. So we dropped off our rental car in Milan and took a train. Plus, I had read that it was a very beautiful train route. And so I wanted to experience that. And it was lovely. But I love the freedom and flexibility of having a rental car. Plus, I love that we can listen to our music that we want to listen to. And it feels like conversations happen easily in the car. And for my husband, who doesn't mind driving, it works really great for us. One of our favorite things in Italy, one of our favorite places was Tuscany. We did not anticipate spending as long in Tuscany as we did, but we would just drive the car. We would just see a castle on a hilltop and say, let's go there, let's go there. And we just kind of went where the wind took us. And it was all of our favorite part, for
That is
sure.
so cool. I love that.
So yeah, for us, so we got the rental car. It was $56 to Uber back to the airport. And then the rental car was 966 euros for 5 days.
Yeah, but you got to, like you said, you've got to think about how you're not paying for those train tickets or the public transportation tickets or even like little flight tickets, sometimes people pay for back and forth in Europe. So for 6 people, that's pretty good to get around for a handful of days.
Right. We spent a night in Tuscany, and like I said, it was our favorite part. We stayed in Monteleone de Orvieto. We loved this Airbnb. It was out in beautiful Tuscan farms, and it had its own private swimming pool.
Wow.
I mean, it was just a dream. If you want to check out my stories, I have a highlight bubble.
Yeah, tell people your Instagram real quick.
Yes, my Instagram is Packin Points, Packin, Packin Points.
I looked at that last night and I like pulled my husband aside and I was like, look at this. Like you can rent an Airbnb in Tuscany with a pool in the middle of the rolling hills. I mean, I was like, I would want to stay there for a week. It looked so peaceful and so beautiful. And I was just like, oh my gosh, sometimes I forget about Airbnbs and I just like look at hotels. And because, when you're in points and miles, you really want to use those points for hotels. But you did say you have some tips for booking Airbnbs on points.
Yes, so we paid nothing for this Airbnb because I used my Venture card miles. If you have the Venture card or the Venture X, you can cancel out any travel purchase with your points. So you can buy theme park tickets through a travel agency, something like Getaway Today or places like that. And then you can cancel out that purchase, and then your points cover your theme park tickets. For
Is it
us,
like 1 to 1? So if the Airbnb was like 1,200, then it's 1,200 points.
yeah,
$1,200, 1,200 points. Okay.
or 1,200 points for $120.
Oh, 120. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yes. So, but a sign up bonus for that card is 75,000. That would be worth $750
Okay.
in canceling out. So it's not the best bang for your buck. If you transfer those Capital One miles, you can get a lot more bang for your buck in transferring them to airlines. But for me, I needed free, and
Yeah.
free is so we got that Airbnb for free. We loved just walking around the little village, going into old churches in Tuscany. I don't know why more people don't stay there because, like you said, I want to go back and just stay there for a week. It was by far, they were our cheapest Airbnbs also. And it was all just so lovely.
Did you guys get in the pool?
Oh, yeah. My kids swam, and my husband and I just enjoyed the view.
That's so cool.
Gardens all around us. We would walk around the little village and just see how people live. They, look at their gardens and just imagine that we lived there, really.
That's so awesome.
It was really great. We ate dinner at a place called Al Basiamano. Amazing food. Tuscany, you're not going to find as many people that speak English, which I actually loved. I felt completely immersed in the culture. I just felt like I belonged there. It truly was amazing. I would highly recommend Tuscany for those who are going to Italy. We stayed there for one night and we were all sad about it. The night that we were there, we went and just explored this little village. It was these people had made apartments out of like this medieval castle. There were just lots of little apartments and they had little box gardens in front of each of their little like condos. They were like little condos, but they were built on these medieval walls. You could look out over, like stand on top of the walls, look out over the village. And it was otherworldly. I could not believe that we were there. They would have little medieval carts just on pathways that just to decorate the town and medieval flags. And one of the villages that we went to, we wandered into what I think was this man's backyard. I don't know. He was this nice man, didn't speak a word of English. And we were just kind of wandering around and he motioned to us to come in. I think he saw my kids and he motioned to us to come into, I mean, it was a very large field and he had medieval weaponry, and he had a big garden and he was working in his garden, and he had my kids work in the garden with him. I mean, people were so friendly and we just wanted to live there. It was
That's
amazing.
amazing. Do you remember what types of food you ate while you were in the little village exploring?
Well, gelato for one thing. We also went to Albastiamano. We got sandwiches. Oh, and a cheese plate and fruit, great pasta. What else? Just, yeah, a lot of gelato is
Yeah,
what I.
I love it. Okay, well, I'm sure you were sad to wake up and have to say goodbye to this beautiful Airbnb, but you got back into your car and you were planning on pulling into Florence early, but you had so much fun exploring Tuscany that you ended up getting there a little later, which is fine. That's part of vacation, and that's why you rented the car.
Right, exactly. It gave us the freedom to do that. So we did. We pulled into Florence a little later, and this is going to be so unpopular, but for me, Florence felt very commercialized and crowded. I
No, it's
know.
okay. That's why we have this podcast, because people need to know if they're planning their own trip, maybe they skip it, and it's okay.
Right. I mean, we had tickets to go see the David, and we ended up not going. We love Tuscany so much. So we even missed our time to see the David. I know people are just they're gonna send you so much hate mail.
No, they're not. I
Uh,
actually get comments or I get reviews, podcast reviews, in Apple Podcasts that say, I love that people share the good and bad. I love that these are real people talking. I love hearing the nitty gritty and the things we wouldn't do. So people actually like that a lot, because it's good to know what you would do again and what you would skip again.
Right. And I know that this is an unpopular opinion. People love Florence, and my husband actually really loved Florence, and he made me promise that we will go back. And
You're like,
so,
as long as we go to Tuscany for the same amount
yeah,
of time.
yes, we will go to Florence, absolutely. But I love those small villages. That's just my vibe. So, anyway, we went to the Lego store in Florence. We went to the Duomo, and it was so great.
Remind me what the Duomo is.
So it's that big, almost looks like a cartoon drawing building. I think it has a red roof and like a bunch of X's. It's a beautiful building, and there's a huge square all around it with lots of shops. For me, it just felt really commercialized. Like I said, the Lego store was right across from the Duomo, and it kind of killed some of the magic for me.
Yeah.
And there were billboards everywhere, advertising purses and sunglasses and all of that. So for me, it kind of killed the magic, although we did have the best gelato of the whole trip.
That's
And
saying a lot because I feel like you guys had a lot of gelato.
right, no, we were connoisseurs for sure. So Eduardo's right by the Duomo, it was our favorite gelato by far. But there are so many great things to do in Florence. We will go back. The Leonardo Museum looked really fun for our kids. I read that instead of paying for the Duomo, if you want, you can pay to go to climb the bell tower next to the Duomo, and there's even better views there. Rental car in Florence was not fun. So I would not recommend a rental car in Florence. It was so hard, harder than Rome, I thought. It was hard to find parking. It was very difficult to drive through the streets. So I would not. It just, for me, I was like, and my oldest son, we were like, let's get out of here.
I have to know
So
what's your typical gelato order?
I'm so glad you asked, because every time I will get the pistachio and the hazelnut. I
Love
get
it.
those two side by side. My husband loves the lemon. And also, what's fun in Italy is they'll have vegetable flavors sometimes. Like you'll have beet gelato or carrot gelato. So that's really fun to experience. After we left Florence, we went to Cinque Terre. This was so great. A lot of times people do day trips to Cinque Terre, and they'll hike and explore the little towns. I had read, to truly experience Cinque Terre, it's really great to stay the night. So we stayed 2 nights.
I
And
stayed a night in Cinque Terre as well in college. I can vividly remember it because it was so unique and so special, like a little fishing villages that are like all right next to each other on a cliffside. It looks like a painting. It was so memorable and amazing. And like you're going to talk about, it's crazy during the day because everyone goes for the day, but at night it calms down and it's so beautiful.
Yes, exactly. I was so glad. We spent a couple of nights there. So we got in the evening time, and the drive there is amazing. You start to see the ocean and you get little glimpses of it, and it's so much more lush too. I mean, it almost felt like I was in the jungle for a minute. It's really beautiful as you're driving there. And then when we arrived, we stayed in Riomaggiore. That little village has the most restaurants. It kind of has the most going on. And I will say at nighttime, still, there is almost nothing going on, which is fantastic. It has maybe 10 restaurants, and a lot of them shut down early, but we loved being there when the cruise ship crowds weren't there or the day trippers weren't there. My favorite place, if I go back, and I plan to go back, my favorite village was Monterosso al Mare. That one it was the most spread out. It was kind of the flattest. It had little pathways and bridges, and that's where I would want to stay if I go back. So I also felt like it felt less crowded because it was more spread out.
Where actually, we didn't talk about where you stayed in Florence. Did you stay in a hotel or
Oh,
an Airbnb?
we didn't actually, but
Oh, you were
I,
there for the day and then drove to Cinque Terre.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So did you stay in an Airbnb in Cinque Terre?
Yes, we did. Yes.
Okay. How was that?
Oh, it was so great. Our Airbnb on the listing, it said that it slept 5 people. I messaged the woman and asked if we could fit 6 because they were kids. And I figured, there was a pull-out couch. They could share, 2 people can share the pull-out couch. She said that would be no problem. But in Italy, you do have to pay taxes for each person that stays there. So every Airbnb we stayed in, we just needed a little bit of cash, and we would just leave it on the table for the taxes. So she said we need to pay taxes for all 6 people. The taxes were minimal. It was like $3 per person a night, if
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So it's not a lot, but we stayed in an Airbnb. Our Airbnb had an amazing view of the cliff side with all the beautiful, colorful houses overlooking the ocean.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really great. In fact, a lot of the time, in the evenings, we would bring our food back to our Airbnb because we just loved our view from our Airbnb so much. We just eat out on the balcony.
And did you do one of the hikes in Cinque Terre? I know I can't exactly remember, but I want to say I did the famous one where I almost hiked all the villages. Like I went from one point to another. I do believe in your notes you said part of it's closed now. My mom recently went as well and said that a portion of the hike is now closed. So did you guys get any hiking in?
Yes, we hiked all day. Our full day there, we hiked all day. We loved it so much. We're big hikers. A portion of the trail is closed, but there's an alternate route that you can take to go up and around. It was hard. There
Okay,
were
good to know.
so many steps, and it was hot. Um,
And how old's your youngest again?
my youngest at the time was 9.
Okay.
So it was very doable for all of us. But I will say after a full day of hiking, we were tired. We were pretty gassed by the end. It's called the Blue Trail that you hike, and you can hike from village to village. There's 5 villages. That's what Cinque Terre means. So you can hike all of the villages. We took the train, I think, once, and then we hiked 3 of the villages. There was one village that we didn't see, that's Corniglia. That is, it's a little more off the beaten path, and I regret not seeing it. It is the least crowded because it's the hardest to get to. But had we had more time, we would have, I would have liked to see that village too. But you just go to each of the villages, get a feel for them. The hiking itself is breathtaking. There are views of the ocean and the colored houses on the cliff. It really is so magical. You see all the farms, all the terraced farms on the hillsides, where people are just growing flowers as well as food. I mean, it really is just amazing. You do have to pay to hike. So in the morning, we went down and bought a train card. The train card is 20 to 32 euros all day, depending on the time of year. It's for the whole day. We ended up hiking more than taking the train. So turns out when I did the math, it would have been cheaper for us to pay for each one of our hikes rather than buy the train card, which also gives you access to the hiking trails. But I'm not sad that we did buy it, that we did buy train cards for everyone, because we didn't know what we were going to end up doing, how much we were going to take the train, how much we were going to hike. It just gave us the freedom to kind of figure it out.
Yeah. Is this rock jumping in Cinque Terre?
Yes.
Okay, I saw that on your stories and I was like, for me, I was like, the whole thing would be worth it right there. Like that just looked so magical and so beautiful, and the water was so clear, and the kids were having so much fun. So talk about that a little bit.
Yes, it is in Manarola. Manarola is the village where you can jump off rocks. And like you said, the water is crystal clear blue. It's so beautiful. You can see fish swimming in the water. And my kids are big. Anywhere we can jump off rocks into water, sign them up. So
Yes.
we spent a couple of hours doing that. We got a sandwich and ate by the rocks. A lot of people are out sunning by the rocks, reading books, and there's different heights of rocks that you can jump off of. So we could do little jumps, which is more my speed, or you can go up high. There's also rock jumping areas in Monterosso al Mare, which my oldest son and my husband did. Those ones are very high rocks, and I wasn't into it.
Almost more like cliff jumping.
Right.
That would make me nervous too. But did you jump off the rocks in the?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yes, I absolutely. Yeah, my kids won't let me. In Manarola, I jumped off the rocks, and it was so fun, such a great experience. I highly recommend stopping there. And even if you don't want to get in the water, but it's hot, so you probably do want to get in the water. But I recommend checking that area out. It's even fun to just watch people jump. My daughter, who was 9 at the time, she would jump off the pretty high ones in Manarola, and there would be a whole crowd gathered and they cheer for her. It was just really fun.
That is so fun. So, did you also spend one night in Cinque Terre? And you had the first day, you spent the night in your Airbnb, and then you hiked and did rock jumping, and
And then
then
we spent another night. We spent two
two
nights.
nights. Okay, awesome. So next you're off to Como, the town near Lake Como. What a dream. At this point, are you guys loving it and just still feeling that sense of adventure, or are you getting tired of packing up and unpacking? Because that reading through your itinerary, I was like, I wonder if they're getting tired of unpacking and repacking, and how if you needed to wash clothes or anything, like how are you guys feeling at this point?
So we stayed at Airbnb, a lot of Airbnb, so we were able to wash clothes. But I will say all the washers and dryers in Europe that we experienced were tiny. So, and I said dryer. That there were no dryers.
Yeah,
So,
washers.
right. So I would wash a load and then lay our clothes out on the balcony for the night. And then the next day I would have to wash another load. It was tiring and a little bit cumbersome, but hey, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
My kids are good travelers, they're good sports. Each new town that we went to was a new adventure. And so, no, at this point, actually not tired. Even my husband was pretty cheerful about loading up the car. Because yeah, you're right. We stayed a night or two at every place in Europe, and we went to lots of different places. I know this would not be everybody's style, but we want to see and do and go. And so for us, it works.
Yeah. Tell us about arriving to Como, Lake Como, because this is obviously at the top of my list and just sounds amazing.
Lake Como, the first thing I could say about Lake Como is it smells amazing. I
What's
know
it
that
smell like?
there are flowers everywhere.
Oh, wow.
You just smell it. There are, I mean, they just dot the hillsides, and it's amazing. And so that was the first thing I noticed about Lake Como. To drive around the lake, it takes quite a while. And we spent a while just driving from place to place around the lake. The road is very narrow. So again, to drive your own car there, you have to be a little bit brave, but people are respectful and there's always people crossing the road. So it is a little bit tricky, but I am so glad that we had our rental car there. There are buses that take you everywhere you want to go, but for us, we wanted to be able to stop and explore. We stayed in Ossuccio, I think is how you say it. We loved that little village. It was right on the water. Our Airbnb was, it was a 10-minute walk to the water through really cute streets. We chose it for its central location. I bought tickets on a ferry to go to Bellagio and Varenna, but when we arrived in Como, it was pouring rain.
Bummer.
We went to the ferry and actually we're ready to get on, and then all of us just kind of looked at each other and said, "No, let's go to dinner."
Yeah.
So that is definitely a place that I want to go back to. That's another bummer with only staying a night or two. We only stayed one night in Como, and bad weather can kill it, right? So
Yeah.
now go back. I could stay a week in Como. There's not a lot to do, but there's parks right on the water where people just sit and stroll and eat. And that's my kind of travel. Like I just want to explore and relax. So I would definitely recommend at least a couple of nights in Como. So we ended up just eating dinner. We ate at a place called Il Golfo. The food was decent. The view was amazing. At this point, this is another thing that people will be an unpopular opinion. We're kind of tired of the food a little bit. Italy
Yeah.
has amazing food, but they have like four options. It's
Yeah.
pizza, pasta, sandwiches, you know.
Cheese.
Right, exactly. So at this point, we're like, oh, I could go for just a really good hearty salad.
Right.
One thing that we did in Como the next day that we loved, there's a little island off of Ossuccio where we stayed. It's the only island in Lake Como. We rented paddle boards. Our kids loved this, and we paddled out to this little island. We were the only human beings on the island. It was amazing. There's a little church, like a medieval church on the island, and some ancient Roman ruins, a crypt that it's all open and explorable. It was amazing. In fact, my kids said when we got to Boston a few days later, my oldest kid said, Boston is kind of a letdown after walking around our own private island with Roman ruins.
Yeah.
It just like changes your perspective. So it was so fun. There were geese on the island. My kids loved exploring, and it was just fun to paddleboard and jump in the water. And then we just let the kids play in the water while my husband and I sat at a park.
That is super cool. Do you know what the island's called? Like, how do people know? So you rent these paddle boards. Can you see the island right there? And it's just like
Yes.
an option to go paddle out to it?
Yes, it is. Let me see if I know what it's called. It's the only island in Lake Como.
Comacina? Isola Comacina?
Yeah.
So this looks so cool. Isola Comacina is the only island on Lake Como, and it was once the site of a Roman fort and a medieval settlement. It looks gorgeous, like just it's right there. So yeah, I can see how you could rent paddle boards kind of just on the coast of Lake Como and paddle out to it. That's so fun. After Lake Como, you drive the rental car to Milan because you're going to take a train from Milan to Lucerne, Switzerland, correct?
Yes.
What did you do anything in Milan, or did you just was it just a place to return the rental car and move on?
No, my husband really wanted to go see the Last Supper, the painting of the Last Supper, but we couldn't fit it in with we had to stick to our train schedule.
Yeah, of course.
So sadly, we couldn't do that. But yeah, we took the train from Milan to Lucerne. It was $368 for all six of us. And the train travel was so fun and novel. I'm not sad that we rented a car for most of the trip, but it was so fun. My kids played those little clapping games on the train, and we laughed and talked, and we got to eat on the train. It was really great. I did not book the first class tickets, but it's not much more if you do want to, and there's more space. Oftentimes food is included, things like that. So train travel is also a really great way to go.
Okay, awesome. And then you arrive in Lucerne.
We were so happy to get to Switzerland. I will say the first thing we did is we went to a market and bought so much food because it had a lot of variety, right? We had eaten a lot of very heavy food. So we went to a market and bought lots of salads and vegetables and
Yes.
things like that. So we were really excited about that.
Where did you stay in Lucerne?
We stayed again in an Airbnb, which I erased with points from my venture, from my Capital One miles. It was just in downtown. There were lots of markets around. There was a grocery store across the street. Lucerne is such a charming town. It has a lake right there and a river, and there's a really famous bridge that burned down in maybe the 17th century, or it burned in the 17th century, but it's still there, and it has art panels, and you can see that they're partially burned, and it's got this medieval art, and it's just really cool. And there's also a lion sculpture that's really famous to go and see in Lucerne. It's a very charming place, lots of good restaurants.
Awesome.
We stayed in this Airbnb for 2 nights. When we were in Switzerland, we rented another car. But also, in addition to that, we bought the half fare card. There's lots of transportation options, and it got so confusing for me in Switzerland. I didn't know what to buy. There's all these different rate cards that you can buy to get a better rate on public transportation. I didn't know what to buy. We ended up buying the half fare card, and it did save us money even with our rental car. It saves 50% on trains, boats, and cable cars. We rode a lot of cable cars in Switzerland, and so that saved us a lot of money. Plus, with the half fare card, kids 17 and under travel free.
Oh,
So
nice.
they don't even do the 50% off. They're just free.
Oh,
So
perfect.
yeah, it was great. The half fare card was 120 Swiss francs per person, and it's for 30 days. So obviously we weren't going to be there for that long. I think we were there for 5 days, but that's the only option. The shortest amount of time you buy it for is 30 days. So I would highly recommend doing that. It did save us money, even with a rental car. It would have saved us more money had we not had a rental car.
Yeah, awesome.
We went to Mount Pilatus in Switzerland, in Lucerne. There's something called the round trip golden ticket. This is a really fun way to see Mount Pilatus. It includes a boat ride, a cogswell train, a cable car. You start at one location, you end at another. We ended up just riding the cable car up and down because if you buy that round trip golden ticket, it takes the whole entire day. But it's such a fun way to go up the mountain. I was wondering, do I need to get these tickets in advance for all of these cable cars that we're going to do and everything? There's no need to do that. Pilatus has amazing views, really beautiful views. It's really cold at the top.
Even in June?
Yes, even in June, we were all bundled up and still pretty cold because it's so high. You're just up so high, and the views are breathtaking. So just green mountains all around. There's cows with bells that you hear in the meadows. My kids would practice their yodeling in the mountains. It was really great. Up at the top, there's a little place to get food. We got pretzels and sausage, trying to be traditional. It was delicious. Also, we stopped on our way down. On the way down the mountain, you ride the cable car down, and there's a stop. You can get off and ride an alpine slide. It was $41 for all 6 of us to do the alpine slide, which is so fun because, like I said, we live near Park City, and that's like $60 a person to ride. the Alpine slide. So this was so fun. You can do it again and again. You're just on this Alpine little coaster thing through the hillsides. I mean, it's straight out of Sound of Music. There's a view of beautiful Lake Lucerne down below. It really truly was so otherworldly.
That sounds amazing.
And then, oh, Chapel Bridge is the name of the bridge. That's what we did the second half of the day. The river walk by Chapel Bridge, there's lots of restaurants and art pieces. It was fun to just see all the art, and my kids fed the geese. Lucerne is a really beautiful place.
Amazing. I love it. Did you get any fondue?
We did not get fondue, sadly, but we did go to this place, Swiss Tasty, that had churros and chocolate for dessert. So we dipped in the
It's like kind of like chocolate fondue.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It was so great. We loved the bowls at Swiss Tasty. Just really fresh food, lots of vegetables. I highly recommend that place.
So then the next day, you drive to a place that looks so magical. Again, I showed it to my husband and I was like, look at this place because I'm not sure I heard about it before. So talk about where you drove to next.
Yes, so we wanted to stay in the Jungfrau region, which is the mountain region of, well, there's mountains everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of little mountain villages in the Jungfrau area. And in particular, we stayed in Lauterbrunnen. And Lauterbrunnen, it's known as the village of 72 waterfalls. It has 72 waterfalls. So you just drive or walk along, and there's one, there's another one, just coming off the cliffside. It's so beautiful. Honestly, Lauterbrunnen has my heart forever. It is one of my favorite places that I've ever traveled to. A lot of these villages are not accessible by car, but we were so glad that we had a car. There are buses that will take you through the valley, but you have to be on their schedule, and they won't go as far up the roads and into the canyons as we were able to go. Honestly, talking with the people and seeing the people was one of my favorite things. I was on a run in the morning and this cute man was out. He was trying to talk to me. I didn't speak his language. I didn't speak German, right? But he was trying to talk to me, and he was out in his wellies, in his garden with his sheep. I mean, it is such a dreamy town. We went to a couple of cemeteries in this area. I love old cemeteries, and they were so beautiful, just really scenic, really
It's kind
cute.
of like, it's almost like the town is in this like valley and it's surrounded by the mountains and waterfalls all around it. And you guys just have to look it up because it's impossible to do it justice with just our words. Lauterbrunnen in Switzerland. It looks incredible.
Yes. And there's playgrounds everywhere, which
Oh,
is
that's awesome.
playgrounds in the tops of the mountains everywhere. It's so great. And some of these villages you can't access with a car. You only can access through cable cars. So
So do the people living in the villages have cars or no?
yes,
They
but
just, you
we are
can't
not
get
allowed.
from one point to the other. They just drive around their village. Okay.
Exactly. And I saw very few cars, maybe two or three in a village. I mean, really not a lot of cars, but the villages are so small and compact, very walkable. It really adds to the charm.
Wow. Okay. You said don't stay in like Interlaken, Grindelwald, those areas that are now much more touristy. You prefer to stay in these small villages because you get that charm and you could go to those places if you wanted to. Did you guys go to those places?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We went to Grindelwald, actually, our first day there. It's a really beautiful town too, but I loved the smaller mountain villages. Something we did in Grindelwald, we took a cable car up, and they have a cliff walk up there. And it's where you're just walking on this mountain, and there's a sheer cliff, and the views are spectacular, but it is scary.
Yeah.
I was on this kind of rickety little bridge. It felt rickety to me. Like I said, amazing views, but kind of you're just kind of clinging to the side of this cliff. So
Wow.
Kind of fun, kind of different. There's a lake up there also when you ride the cable car up to Grindelwald, Lake Bacapalci. I don't know how to say it, guys, but we hiked to the lake. It's a couple of miles hike to the lake. Yeah, it was too snowy at the 1st of June. The lake was still frozen over.
Wow.
Yeah, so but I hear that it's lovely in the summer, lots of wildflowers it later on in the summer. So we loved that. Something else we loved at Grindelwald was for $20 a person. This was one of our favorite things. We got what these bikes, they're called trotty bikes, and you come down, they're like little scooter bikes, and you just come down the mountain. So you ride the cable car up and then ride down the mountain on these little bikes. It took about an hour or so, and I got to tell you, we were going fast, like probably too fast
Yeah.
to be safe. But I mean, you can go as fast or as slow as you want. I definitely went a lot slower than my kids, but we just packed a lunch and rode these bikes down. The views were incredible. And we stopped at a little church and by a little cemetery and just had lunch. And again, it was a pinch me moment. It was so awesome.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
Another thing to do in Lauterbrunnen, we went up behind Tremmelbeck Falls. Tremmelbeck Falls, you can see a waterfall from the outside of the mountain. It just looks like a regular waterfall. But if you go inside, it was $67 for my whole family. If you go inside the mountain, you ride a cogswheel tram up through the mountain and it takes you inside. And then you see a huge waterfall inside the mountain.
Wow, that's cool. Like you're
Just
looking at it from behind, kind of.
no, it's more water inside.
Oh,
It's
in the
different.
mountain. Oh, wow,
Yeah, it's
different.
different than what you even see on the outside. So much water. It's loud and powerful, and you get soaked just from the mist. But it's a really cool experience. I would recommend doing that.
Wow, super cool.
And then some places we ate in Lauterbrunnen, which was so great. We loved the sausage dogs. The place is called Betty's. They're like corn dogs, but they're gourmet corn dogs. They have spicy powder on them. You get mayo or pickles or different toppings on your corn dog. So that was really fun to
That
try.
sounds really good.
Yeah, it was really good. And then we went to a waffle cart with ice cream. There's just a bunch of little kind of food truck things in Lauterbrunnen and restaurants as well where you could get fondue. We were usually more on the go eating rather than sit down places.
Yes, I still remember getting fondue. I can't remember which town it was, but somewhere in Switzerland. And there was snow everywhere, and these Swiss people were walking around. And I was like, should I try to marry a Swiss guy and move here? Like it just felt so dreamy.
Maybe we all should. Yes.
Yeah.
The next day, we just continued to explore these mountain villages. We went to Mürren, Grimmelwald. It was fun at each of the places to kind of find out what their little village was famous for. Like Mürren had a really famous hot chocolate place. So we stopped and got this really creamy, thick hot chocolate. And, we would just kind of eat our way through each little village. It was so fun. One of the days they had just out for people to use, just in a little park. There was a playground and a huge chess set. So we just stopped and played chess in the top of the mountains with amazing views and cows overlooking our giant chess game. And I mean, it's really great. I could spend a week there for sure. After we finished exploring the mountain villages, we headed to Zurich, and that was a drive. That was a few hours drive. But on the way, I wanted to stop and see Bern. I have ancestors that came from Bern, and so I wanted to I was looking at a particular church that I wondered if my great great grandma went to. And, so I wanted to stop and just spend, honestly, we were going to get lunch there. And we ended up spending the entire afternoon there. I think we stayed there for 8 hours. I loved it so.
Wow.
We rented city bikes and just rode around Bern. I personally liked Bern even more than Lucerne. When I go back, I will definitely stay a night in Bern. It's a little bit of a bigger, well, maybe it's about the same size as Lucerne, but it just felt more traditional, really the cobblestone streets, and it felt a lot more historical. So I loved that so much.
Awesome. And again, your kids hit up a McDonald's.
Yes, they did. You bet. They did. We had to try McDonald's in Switzerland.
Then you headed to Zurich.
Yes, and we did spend a night in Zurich. Zurich is a big city. Definitely don't need a car there. Zurich was great. It was, I didn't feel like it was that charming or historical, but it's a great big city, really clean. Things to do there. We only stayed there one night, so we didn't really do anything in Zurich. We stayed at the Hyatt place, the Circle. This is a cool little area. It's attached to the airport, but there's lots of shops and spas, and you can honestly spend a whole afternoon just in this little area that's attached. It's like a little village that's attached to the airport. So we stayed in this hotel. It was 12,000 points per room.
That's so great.
Yeah, it really was. Plus, we paid $25 per room to upgrade to a family room that slept three.
Perfect.
So the regular room sleep two. This had a family room that had two beds, slept three, and only $25 a night. So I
Yeah.
was so happy about it. It was much nicer than the Hyatt places in the States, I will tell you. It felt like a higher quality hotel. They do not do free breakfast, sadly, in Europe at the Hyatt places, but that's okay. It felt like a classier hotel. I would definitely stay there again. And if you want an even nicer hotel, the Hyatt Regency is right next door. And that's even a higher tier of hotel.
But that's so great because they're both so close to the airport. So whether you're arriving or departing, it can be like a good place to stop, still have some fun, but you're not super far away from the airport.
Exactly.
Awesome. So then it's probably a little bittersweet. It's time for you guys to go to your flight.
Yes, we're headed home. So, like I said, we had a stopover in Boston on our way home because I had a really hard time finding flights back to Salt Lake City for a point value that I was willing to pay for. So, we stopped over in Boston, spent the day there. I booked us a flight home in the evening just so we could do the Freedom Trail and things like that. We tried gelato in Boston also just to test.
Yeah. How was it?
No, they're right. It's better in Italy. They're
Yeah.
definitely. Anyway, that was fun, but it was just such a dreamy trip and something that I never could have done without the help of points and miles. And even if you're wanting to take the edge off a little bit, using points can be such a great way just to get a good deal. You don't have to pay for your whole trip on points and miles. We didn't. It still cost us. We needed to pay for train tickets and the things that we did, of course, but it takes the edge off for sure, being able to use points.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to Nikki about before we got on recording the podcast is that once you kind of jump into points and miles, it can be a little addicting. And then you start trying to get everything for free. And I was actually talking to my husband last night. I was like, wait, just a few years ago, we paid for everything fully in cash. Not that I want to do that anymore, but like it's okay to still spend money on a trip because, like you said, you're taking the edge off. Maybe you got the hotel for free. Maybe you got the rental car for free. Maybe you got the flights for free. But like, it's okay to still spend some money, on a trip and not feel like guilty about it.
Yes, for sure. Yes, that's a great tip.
Okay, I have a few questions before we close out. If you were to take this exact trip again, would you do anything differently?
Oh, I feel inclined to say I would stay longer at almost all of our locations, but in the same breath, that's not super practical for us, right? My husband has a job he needs to get back to. Um, I I have these kids and it's a challenge to travel with kids for a long period of time. So I probably wouldn't cut anything out because I'm glad that we saw the places that we saw. But I know for a lot of people, they would probably rather take it at a slower pace, maybe see less places and have time to kind of soak in their locations a little bit more.
Well, I'm impressed with you guys and how much you did in one trip. It's very impressive. Okay, if you could only go back to one of the cities you visited for a few nights, like tomorrow, which one would you go to?
Como. I would go to Como. My husband would go to Florence. But I would go to Como. I felt sad that we experienced rain there and I loved it so much. So I definitely want to spend more time there.
Okay. And then if you could only eat one thing from the trip again, what would you want to eat again?
Oh, it's so hard to choose between pizza and gelato. I'm gonna go with pizza,
Okay,
actually.
nice. Yeah, we didn't talk
We
about pizza too much.
Yeah, we had a lot of gelato and we loved it, but I don't know. That pizza, there was something different about it. The cheese was better. The ingredients just felt so much more fresh. So I'd probably go with their pizza.
They are, people who have gluten intolerance in the US can actually eat food and bread and pizza in Italy because they don't have as big of an issue with gluten in their flour.
Right. It's just more fresh. It's made more pure. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, last question and then we'll close it out, I promise, because I know you guys, this episode's getting long, but we had to fit everything in. What's your best advice for large families trying to play the points and miles game?
Oh, great question. A lot of people think it's not possible if they're not just traveling with two people. And I will say it is tricky. We have never flown business class. That is tricky, although doable. People do it for families of six, but it's hard to find that much availability. And then it takes so much of your points. I told my youngest daughter, when everyone grows up and moves away, we will only fly business class with you. But for now, we are all slumming it in economy.
Yes.
But I will say it is absolutely doable. You just need twice the cards. And if you don't want to get twice the cards, that's fine too. Get one card, like you talked about in your podcast about Hyatt and Chase. Get the Chase Sapphire Preferred and then start transferring your points. And it makes travel more affordable. Even if I pay for almost all my flights and hotels on points and miles, but I have a lot of cards. If you don't want to do that, then you can get one or two cards and use them well. It will make traveling with a big family more affordable.
Yes. Okay, Nikki, I end every episode with, if someone out there is considering this trip, what is it about traveling to Italy and Switzerland with kids that would make you say, just book it?
I would say the adventure. The adventure for my kids, they will talk about this trip, I hope, for a very long time. Wandering through streets, trying new foods, meeting new people. It's an adventure trip. It's tiring for sure. This trip was tiring, but so memorable. And I'm so thankful that we were able to make it happen.
Amazing. Okay, remind people where they can find you online if they want to learn more of your points and miles tips.
Yes, you can find me at Pack and Points. I share lots of tips about how to use points and miles, how to get points and miles. And then I also help people, if they don't want to dive in deep, I help people plan trips on points and miles.
And if you guys are thinking about any of these destinations, she has a lot of highlight bubbles that you can watch to kind of get a feel for the different cities and the different places that you would be visiting. Thank you so much for being here. This was so fun.
Thank you, Kelsey.
That wraps up another episode of Trip Tales. If you have a trip you'd like to share about on the podcast, email me at triptalespodcast@gmail.com and I'll add you to the schedule. Also, be sure to follow the show so that you don't miss any upcoming vacation destinations. And if you have an extra minute in your day, please leave a review for the podcast. It helps more than you could imagine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trip Tales.